Well, hi, gentlemen. Thank you very much for giving us a bit of your time this afternoon in Lusaka, at morning time here in Washington. But we're going to be talking about the political situation in Zambia. We understand recently that officials of the government, the UPND led government, say that over 80% of promises made by President Hichilema and the UPND government have been kept. Let me come to you, Frank, first. What is the latest development regarding promises kept by the UPND government?
Yes, the first thing that I must mention, of course, acknowledging my fellow guest, Honorable Greyford Monde, who was once a member of parliament, I think for Iteji, and served as a minister. So he's a solid person with very, very reputable background in terms of governance. And I'm happy to share this platform with him. So one thing I must say is that whenever there is change of government in Zambia, the first 5 years, the people are disillusioned. The people complain. The people think that they were cheated. The people think that the election promises have not been fulfilled the first 5 years. And that culture or the complaints begin immediately after the change of government. Because majority of our people, those who vote, think that promises can be fulfilled immediately a new government forms cabinet and begin to work. But things don't work that way.
I understand your point.
In
I
our case,
understand your point, Frank. But the president made a statement. He told Zambians that within 24 hours when he comes, the kwacha was going to improve. He said there will be no load shedding. And he told people to record him. There will be no load shedding. I remember him saying that it was a lazy approach and incompetence, that the former government said that the load shedding at that time was due to climate change and other pressing factors. He said, and he compared to the United Arab Emirates. What is happening is he's repeating the same excuses he said that a previous administration made. So, what is the difference? They argue.
improving the lives of the people, that promise did not have the 24-hour timeline. The 24-hour timeline referred to the kwacha appreciating. But the president understands very well that the appreciation of the kwacha as a result of the confidence inspired by the change of government is something that needs to be sustained through other factors.
Are you happy with the current situation on the ground in Zambia?
Um, um, as I'm talking to you just now, there is a ruling that has just been delivered on the members of the Patriotic Front, our provincial chairman, who merely met Honorable Bowman Lusambo again, a member of parliament, who this government snatched a seat from. And just at an eating place at a bus station, they took him and 4 others to court. And today they have been imprisoned just now. Of course, they've given them 12 months suspended sentence. And all of these are being done to ensure that they can stop our people from freely participating in the democracies and their rights in this country. This government and this president is the worst president ever this country has had. We have never seen a situation where 10 of sitting members of parliament have either been snatched of their seats on flimsy cases or being taken to prison. Sitting members of parliament, never ever in the history of this country. I have inquired from those that started the country in 1964 at independence to where we are today. This government is out there to silence everyone who's got a dissenting voice. President Hakainde Hichilema is the worst president this country has ever had. And you can even see how he is, he has now traits of a dictator. And dictators never know that they've become dictators if they're not told. He is now a full-fledged dictator that wants to rule this country using in fact, he's actually worse than our colonial masters who allowed us to assemble. Just a few days ago, they dispersed a meeting of a church that came to worship. They've dispersed all political party meetings. They've disrupted church meetings before in this country. Within these 4 years, everything is not holding together. The economy is broken. It's at its worst. I don't even know why he insists to want to continue to govern this country when he has failed to deliver the services, the promises that he had assured the Zambian people. This president now wants to amend the constitution. If you look at the process of amending a constitution, this process has always begun with the people. And in any country, it must start with the people. Saying we are not happy with this article, we're not happy with that article. This particular president in his house, a matter that began like a rumor that constitution will be amended, he disputed several times. His minister said there will be no constitution amendment. In no time, boom, it was in parliament with a draft constitution with items already highlighted. Then the members of the country, through a leader of the Patriotic Front, a youth leader, took this government to court, the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court just was about to read the ruling tomorrow. A day before, this government, as though they had an insight of that ruling, they withdrew the bill from Parliament. In no time, that bill, the following day, there was a ruling. On the ruling, there were eyebrows and the concerns from the court. Today, as I'm talking to you, they have just tried to rubber stamp that process. Now, this is very worrisome, but we all know that what this government is trying to do is to create a lot of parliamentary seats and allow parliament to be the one that is going to appoint a president, a system like the one we see in South Africa. It is because this government or this president, Hakainde Hichilema, knows very well that he cannot hit a 50+1 majority vote in the next election. The same 50+1 standard, which is a very high threshold in terms of democracies, he is trying to run away from that standard. And by the way, this 50+1 is actually an amendment that came from one son of the soil, the late president of this country, President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, who selflessly was willing to let go even if it was going to affect him. He amended major parts of the constitution. One, a running mate to avoid going to a by-election for the president, that no president in the past was willing to do. President Lungu managed to do that. 50+1 threshold. Before there used to be simple majority. The other one was the date of election. Would be an election day. Yeah, only the president will know when he wants. Zambians raised flag against this, and we went to amend the constitution. This constitution that we have today, Peter, you must be able to know that it has a safety valve. What is a safety valve? There was a creation of a constitutional court which never existed before, and this court is able to interpret all of those lacunas that could arise. Here is a perfect case. In 2016, I was one of those ministers that stayed in power. When we lost power, in fact, during the same time while we were in power, the opposition UPND and the Law Association of Zambia took us to court to interpret the part of how a minister exits office. And we lost that matter, and we all paid whatever that we had accrued when we were in power, thereby creating or interpreting that clause which was ambiguous. So this current constitution now has a safety valve through the created constitutional court. But this man, he has put up a technical committee with terms of references that are exact of that draft constitution or draft bill which came to parliament. It means that the technical committee, which is a bogus selection again, that he just handpicked the people that he wanted to belong to that committee, will now have no option to move away from the terms of reference. So if they are told you are talking about the delimitation of constituencies, they cannot look at any other outside that parameter. And they've started going around the country, and they've given themselves 30 days to go around. So they're only going to provincial capitals. They go to Chipata, and they're saying we've been to Eastern Province. They go to capital cities. This process required time. This process cannot be completed now. What is the worry? What is the panic? We all know. this president had failed to deliver his promises. Had he delivered his promises, had the Hakainde Hichilema delivered even just a 1/8 or 1/10 of his promises, he would not be panicking in the manner he's panicking. But we want to assure him through Father Bwalya, who is his director, that the people of Zambia have decided, and nothing is going to stop them. You can keep stopping the opposition from gathering. I want to say to you that the opposition that you face are the people of Zambia, and time is ticking. Very soon it will be May. We just have about 7 months to May before Parliament dissolves, really, and there's nothing left only to go into the general election. The people of Zambia have resolved to kick out this government, and there's no amount of hindering or amount of persecution is going to stop them.
The power situation is bad. It's affecting industry, and the president promised that this was not going to happen under his leadership. Why has he not been able to resolve? Because now even internet connectivity is poor, Zambians say. Zambians are saying they are more under political and economic pressure, and that the situation under the previous government appears to be better than right now. And they said that the president has failed to keep his promises. Your response to that?
Yeah, as I said, after only a few years or even a few months of the change of government in Zambia, many people, when it has happened, many people begin to say that the government has failed to fulfill the promises, because they expect that the change would happen within a short time. When we come to power rationing, which is the main problem that the UPND, that we have as UPND, yes, the president promised to end load shedding, but that promise was based on the presumption, which has been proved to be unsustainable, on the presumption that we are going to have good rains, because with drought, and the kind of drought we had like never before, has made the power generating capacity of ZESCO, our main power utility, cut it to less than half. That's where we are standing.
If it was an assumption,
so the promise remains, it was
that
done.
Then the president did not take into consideration some of these mitigating factors. Did he overpromise? Because if he made an assumption that those in government have failed to keep the lights on, and for which reason he described them as incompetent, and now he's facing the same situation and is making excuses, then isn't he incompetent as well, his critics say? Using the same basic accusation he leveled against the previous
so when
government.
you talk about the excuse before was not drought. We had drought like never before, the worst drought in the history, at least in living memory, of Zambia last year. If it had not been for that drought, we would not be in the space where we are. So that promise has been undermined by drought. Not lack of policy direction, not lack of investment in the energy sector, especially in terms of diversification. Under this government, Zambia has embarked on a mammoth revolution to diversify our energy sources. More has been done in the last few years, like never before in the history of this country, especially where solar is concerned. And under this regime, under the leadership of President Hakainde Hichilema, Mamba Corrales, which is a thermal generating power, is doubling
is the power sharing,
its capacity
why is
to another
load shedding
300
still
megawatts
continuing? Because under the previous administration, local reports say that they enjoyed more than 20 hours of electricity. Now, communities appear to be enjoying only 3 to 4 hours of power in a day. Some are even saying that that is unsustainable, and the government keep making promises as if to say that Zambians are at fault for not going to solar and among other issues, and that the government keeps, they said, not my words, keeps lying or telling them lies. Your response to that?
I'm speaking to you in my mother's house on the Copper Belt in Kitwe. I think power must have, the load shedding on our part must have started, I think, around 05 because I was sleeping then. I had a cough, as you know, I wasn't feeling very well. But when we were about to start this program, then power was restored. We hope to have power by even by the time we go to bed, but then maybe around 04, 05, that's when it will cut. Some people are saying that they're only having 2 hours of power, others are saying 3 hours of power, but sometimes it's an exaggeration. What is true is that almost every place in Zambia is experiencing load shedding. Some for 7 hours, others 10 hours, but not having power just 2 hours or 1 hour. That's not true. This is a problem that the government acknowledges. It's a problem that President Hakainde Hichilema acknowledges. We are likely to have a good rainy season this year, according to what we have been informed, the entire SADC region. But Zambians also know that it takes 3 good rainy seasons consecutively for us to have good levels of water in the Kariba for ZESCO to generate enough power. So we are coming from a drought, and then we had a good rainy season, and people think then load shedding should end. It
So
can't
let me
end. It
ask
would
you. Let,
require
let, let
3
me let me ask you.
good
Let's
rainy
move on. Let's
seasons.
move on.
Now, yes, just a small point. The severe drought that we had was preceded by partial droughts, meaning that even before that drought, the water levels in our water bodies that are mainly used for power
All right.
generation,
So let me
the
ask
levels
you
were
this
already going
about
down.
the political situation in Zambia. A lot of the political parties, opposition political parties, accuse the government of using state institutions, including the police, to thwart or prevent their meetings, using the guise of the security situation being untenable and prevents them from having any meeting, and sponsoring opposition groups to cause disaffection among opposition political parties, including the Patriotic Front. Mr. Bwalya, my question to you is, why is the government not allowing, or the police not allowing, opposition parties to freely meet and campaign? Because several, I spoke to one presidential candidate, he said his party has applied to the police seeking permission for meetings for over 23 times. Only 4 have been granted in parts of the country. This is not good, they argue. Your take?
What happens in this country is that when we have a problem and that problem is attended to and resolved, some people want to continue talking about the problem as if it is still existing, as if it has not been addressed. The problem of the police not allowing, in some instances, not allowing the opposition to go ahead with their meetings, not allowing even the ruling party to go ahead with their meetings, that was a problem that was there more than 2 years ago. More than 2 years ago. This time around, when opposition, or including the ruling party, write to the police notifying them, because you don't need to get permission under our law, you just need to notify the police, notifying them. We are not aware as UPND about the police blocking any political party from having their meetings. So they have been having meetings. It is those same meetings where you see them mainly spending time abusing the president, giving the people of Zambia no alternative program. It is during those same meetings that they cut now small clips and so on, and sometimes making a fun of themselves. But the bottom line is that even during election campaigns, when you have by-elections for councillors and members of parliament, the opposition freely mobilize, freely campaign, and participate in those elections.
But
And a few of
Madam
those elections
Kapwepwe,
have
you
been
know
won
her
by
very
them.
well, whose father was the first vice president of Zambia, said the country is being led by liars. Her words, not me. And I'm sure you're also aware that the reports show that she has also launched a legal challenge to the government, suing the government for what he said continuous power or load shedding. So all is not well in Zambia as promised by the president, they argue, because when he was campaigning, his motto or mantra was Bali will fix it. Why hasn't he fixed Zambia, they say. So let me ask you, Mr. Greyford, has the president or the government kept its promises after coming to power 4 years now?
It's a clear indication today where we're sitting as a country that this government has not kept its promises that it gave to its people. And it's not just an accusation. You can even see how that this government is trying to remain in power after having had failed to fulfill its promises. The promises that this government had made to this country are clear. They promised that the cost of living is going to be okay, that the Zambian people will buy commodities way cheaper than the PF had left. They cited the pilfery in terms of fuel procurements, and there was a formula that was presented to this country by the then leader of opposition of the UPND, now the president, by way of saying that there was a 3 kwacha that was being taken to middlemen, and that fuel was going to be cheaper than 12 kwacha. And fertilizer, for example, the cost of implements in the agricultural sector were going to be way cheaper than the 650 kwacha that they found a bag of fertilizer, way cheaper than the 250 kwacha they found a bag of 10 kg, which today maize seed is going for 1,000 kwacha, fertilizer is going for 1,200 kwacha. Everything has been either doubled or tripled, and this is a status on every commodity in this country. And so the Zambian people actually say that if you want to know the price of any commodity in this country today, all you need to do is to just multiply by 2 or by 3 of what it was in 2021. And this has gone to even services like load shedding, for example, supply of power to citizens. What looked like a joke now is a reality, that people are only having 3 hours of power in their homes. So generally, all of this is translating into the worst Zambia ever since Zambia became independent. And all of this is happening within 4 years. And our worry today is that if this government is going to continue to govern this country next year, Zambia will be the worst country in this world. You have checked the statistics that Zambia...
Bwalya here, he said that unlike critics who say that opposition parties are not being allowed to freely assemble and campaign, that the government has freely allowed, and sometimes you organize yourself and abuse the president during campaigns. You campaign during by-elections. You have won some few of them and all that. How is your response to that? What's your response to that?
Mr. Bwalya is quite very aware that, truth be told, the country today is crying. There has been no freedom of freedoms allowed to the opposition. Major opposition political parties, for example, the Patriotic Front, maybe a story for another day, right now is being controlled by Mr. Hakainde Hichilema himself, having snatched it from the real owners through a bogus conference that happened, and he supported it with his police. The political parties here, even the alliances that we have tried to engage as the Patriotic Front through agreements that we have made, have been stopped to host or to hold rallies during the last 4 years. There's been never a dark time where the opposition has never been allowed to hold opposition political rallies. There's been never. We've put a lot of applications. In fact, by the way, the law to allow you to hold a rally or a public gathering is just by way of notifying the police. This government has never allowed the opposition to hold these rallies. A few rallies have been called upon, even those ones where the police could have given a permit. Just when the central government realized that there was going to be a rally, they've cancelled such permits, and many rallies like that have happened. So this is a big worry, and we know that this may not be very easy for the ruling party. I keep saying that if this government had delivered to its promises and services, they will not be worried for what the opposition is going to say, because
No, Frank, let me come to you. You said that a lot of opposition political party campaigns have been allowed to proceed in spite of reports that the police often cite security concerns, for which reason they were stopped. Talk briefly, react to what Mr. Monde is saying.
As I said, this is a problem that was rampant the last 2 or more than 2 years ago. The situation is different. The opposition are allowed, including the ruling party, are allowed to have meetings because the law is very clear that all they need to do is to notify the police. So a few of those applications have been honored, and my brother has admitted that. And as UPND, we are not accountable to that because we don't control the police. And we are on record saying to the police, they need to allow not only the opposition, but even ourselves to go about doing political mobilization, to hold meetings
let me
and so
come
on,
to
because
you,
it is
Greyford.
guaranteed under our
President
constitution.
Hakainde Hichilema said that when he came to office, in a few weeks before the election, that when he gets into office, within 24 hours, the kwacha was going to improve. He has connections abroad, he has friends abroad, things are going to change. And he vowed Bali will fix it, the economic situation will improve. Has the president kept his promises? Some say he has failed. Frank Bwalya says Zambians usually complain within the first 5 years, wanting things to change overnight, but it's a process. Has President Hakainde Hichilema failed the people of Zambia 4 years as president? And then we come to Father Frank Bwalya to react. Your response to that?
Brother Peter, this our president today and his government is the worst government that has ever happened, and it has taken this country way backward. The last 5 years is a wasted 5 years, is a wasted opportunity for this government and for the country in itself. If we use a scoreboard to cross-check how much was the dollar at the time the man became president, how much is the dollar today, how much was fuel at the time the man came into power, and how much is fuel today. If we use those measures, how much was... So every sector that he talked about, as we speak today, there is nothing that where you can count a positive posting regards the promises that President Hakainde Hichilema had pledged to this country. He pledged, for example...
All right, let me come to you. Let me come to you, Frank. Can you react?
When PF formed government, I was personally involved, and we did a lot of work to campaign for PF. Mr. Sata made promises, a lot of promises, and the people kept those promises. Within a few months of forming government, the people were complaining, and they called Mr. Sata a liar. That's how we coined the term Sela Tuwombeko, which means move, we want to do the work. The message that time was that you don't expect the policies, the good policies the government is implementing to come to fruition within such a short time. The only challenge that we still have in this country is load shedding.
But talking about load shedding, the president vowed,
and it's not
and
because
he said,
of lack
record
of...
me, under my leadership, there will be no load shedding. There's videos going around where during a radio interview, he promised Zambians that there will be no load shedding. He said previous administration, like the PF, was incompetent. Officials were incompetent, and he compared it to the United Arab Emirates, saying they didn't have this, they didn't have that. But it takes leadership to do that. So if the same logic were to be applied today, Frank Bwalya, don't you think the accusation will be that the president is also incompetent, since that was the same label he labeled the previous administration for not being able to resolve the load shedding, which is, they argue, is worse now than previously? Father Bwalya, and then Greyford, you come in.
Yeah, two points I'll raise here. Number one, the promise was made that was based on God's providence, us having good rains in the meantime before diversifying. So the drought that we had came before the diversification, and there is no way government would have found an alternative source for electricity. On the other side, the promise remains because of the huge investment that is going in the energy sector in terms of diversifying our energy sources. But we still have a huge population that did not have electricity before. So, for instance, next year, Mamba Rallies is going to bring on board 300 megawatts of power. And ZESCO has announced that they have connected 300,000 new customers. Assuming that each household is consuming 1 kilowatt, you are talking about 300 megawatts. And that is still, it means therefore that even that 300 megawatts of power that was going to come from Mamba Rallies may not make a huge difference. And why is it like this? Because historically, and that's what the president has been saying, historically, we haven't had enough investment in
All right.
terms of
All right.
alternative energy
Your point
sources
has been made.
in
Let me
Zambia.
come to you,
We
Mr.
have
Monde.
relied more on hydro
Very
power
well. So,
generation.
quite true. President Hakainde Hichilema could have been very excited with his position to ascending into presidency. And you saw how he went around flying the country, even after promising that he was not going to fly as much as President Edgar Lungu, the late, would have done. Just within about less than a year, we saw President Hakainde Hichilema fly over 60 countries within just few months, half a year. When he was queried, he says he's the number one marketing officer for Zambia. And he came at one moment, I remember he says, we've signed an MOU for $2 billion to do alternative power, which is renewable energies. Today, as I'm talking to you, this government has put in not even 100 megawatt of power. I'm actually being very economical with that fact. What is there is just feasibility studies. But it must also be known to you that, in fact, the PF that is being blamed now for not having created enough power, that Mamba Coral they're talking about, is actually a project that PF started and left it at a certain level. When the PF came into power, we concentrated our efforts on putting up both solar energy, which is renewable, and hydro. We moved our capacity from 1,600 to over 3,400 megawatts of power, thereabout, maybe 3,500 or 3,600. This is a major leap in terms of the progress made in the energy sector, and this no government has ever done within the 5 years of President Edgar Lungu being in power. Now, this government to date is still blaming the PF for the things that they've failed to do. By the time PF was leaving office, there was the 600 megawatts capacity of power through renewable energy of contracts that were at various stages, many of them having been signed. Because of their...
Briefly, let me come to you, Father Bwalya. Briefly react to that, 30 seconds, and we move on to the next topic.
Well, of course, my brother has mentioned a number of things, including the president visiting 60 countries within a short time. I'm not too sure how that counting has been done. But talking about energy, the UPND is not saying, the president has not been saying, the load shedding we are having today, it's PF to blame and not the UPND. The truth of the matter is that PF was in government. I was part of PF. PF was in government for 10 years. Some of the projects that were undertaken under PF, all of them under hydropower, were inherited from the MMD. The major ones, like the Kafue Gorge Upper. My brother is is disapproved. I was once board chairperson for ZESCO, so I do know that some of those projects were left by the MMD. Some of them were started by the PF. And as UPND, we are not saying we are in this
I understand that. Let me come to you,
because
Mr.
of
Monde.
PF.
Let me come to you, Mr. Monde. You
We
made
are
your
saying,
point.
and this is the truth, that the
Okay.
country, let me just finish this point. The truth of the matter is that as a country, and that's how recently the president has put it, as a country, we have not invested enough in alternative energy sources over the years. And that's why we are in the state that we are. Because when that deadly drought came and wiped off much of our hydro capacity, power generation, then where we are,
opposition,
the deficit is mainly because of the
will
law.
fix it. Why hasn't it fixed it? Okay, let me come to you, Monde.
The man wanted to be in power by hook or crook. He wanted to be in power with whichever means possible, even if it meant a lie. And he did mention that don't talk to me about drought, don't talk to me about climate change, because in Dubai, for example, United Arab Emirates, there is no rain. It's a desert. There is a record to that effect. And he says the reason why we have load shedding now, he actually says it's because people don't think. He actually did this thinking. And so when I come in power, we are going to improve all of this scenario. Today, as we speak, Peter, I want to say to you that ZESCO is no longer the major power sources or solution for our country. In fact, today's ZESCO is actually the alternative power that we have. People have resorted now to buying very expensive solar and alternative power sources because the government has completely failed to provide. So I can assure you
Okay,
that
I'll come to you. Your point is made, but let me come to you still on power. I've had people, friends, and in Zambia, including ruling party officials and opposition representatives, and they tell me that they have to resort to, sometimes turning off their phones to conserve energy. They don't have power. Industries are being impacted. So has Bali fixed the problem he promised Zambians he will fix? And not saying that, oh, these are beyond my control.
Bali is fixing this problem. And as we said, we have added to our power pool in Zambia more than 600 megawatts of power in terms of solar. The recent one, the Chisamba solar project, which is in modules, the first 100 was commissioned. More is coming to make it 1,000. We have other sites in Choma, in Monze, in Luapula. In Luapula, I think it should be launched in the next coming few months. I was just looking at it recently, but I can't remember which month, but it's almost done. There are others coming up in Pika and so on. And then the good policy of net metering, where people now would be encouraged to put solar panels on their rooftops. They can use that energy. They can even sell that energy to ZESCO. This is something that was never done before in this country, and it's a very, very positive policy shift in terms of power generation. So we do believe that these initiatives, though seemingly low, are going to go a long way in terms of helping.
We need to move on. Your point is made.
But also,
let's
big
talk about
companies.
The issue of free speech and alleged persecution by the government using state institutions like the police and the judiciary to go after perceived enemies. Because critics of the administration tell me that opponents, including the PF representatives and other opposition parliamentarians like Munir Zulu, are being used to silence the opposition, and that they are being picked off gradually. If you go to jail, they said there are a lot of opposition representatives in jail for speaking out, and that free speech has been severely curtailed or under threat in Zambia, and that Mr. Hakainde Hichilema and his government have gone on a persecution vengeance spree, something he promised he was not going to do. Is this true, Mr. Bwalya?
It is not true. No one has gone to jail. No one has been arrested because they expressed themselves, because they called government corrupt, because they called this president a failure, or because they exposed some corruption, or they provided an alternative to what government was offering. No one has gone to jail. Those who have broken the law in the process of expressing themselves and have been found wanting, reported to the police, gone through the due process of the law, some of them have gone to jail. That's the bottom line. There's no such a law, and there's never been a time in this country where a person would be arrested just for expressing themselves. I was arrested when President Michael Sata was still with us by calling him incorrigible, and I used a local term called chumbumunchororo, which simply means incorrigible. I was arrested, taken to court, prosecuted for 1 year, but I was acquitted. Under President Michael Chilufya Sata's government, I was acquitted. And the judge pronounced himself, the magistrate pronounced himself very, very clearly. This expression does not amount to insulting the president. This man was expressing himself, commenting on public issues, and he has a right to do that. And
So how come the
offense.
opposition people are saying
That was
that they are being
under Michael
persecuted?
Chilufya Sata. Today, no, so today, it's the same judiciary that we have, a judiciary that you can have confidence in. Of course, when the decision goes in what the opposition would consider their favor, then they say we have a strong opposition in Zambia. When it doesn't, then they say the opposition is controlled by the president. But the truth of the matter is that no single Zambian individual has gone to prison for just expressing themselves. We have still out there in the communities, people are very critical. But those who continue to insult and are out there in the community, it's because the police have failed to arrest them to make them to account. Those who make statements clearly aimed at destabilizing the peace of our country, seditious in nature, those have been arrested, and some of them have been jailed.
Before we go, will you say that you are happy with the state of Zambia at the moment, comparing it to the situation in the previous administrations now? Because cost of living, they said, have gone up significantly high. Load shedding has significantly worsened. The kwacha is not performing creditably well with other international currencies, including the US dollar. And people are saying things have gotten worse, and that the government has been using the cybersecurity law to go after perceived political enemies to ensure that the opposition parties are destabilized. That will pave way for President Hichilema to easily win the next general election, which is next year. In this climate, Mr. Bwalya, are you happy with these allegations being made against the government and the current situation on the ground?
When the opposition comment on what is happening in Zambia, and I'm talking about the PF, who want to get back into power, they mention those things and totally ignore the positives that have happened in this country. When objective, independent people comment on what is happening in Zambia today, the only thing that they would complain about is lack of enough power. Because that is what has created, in a ripple effect manner, that's what has created all the problems that we have to do with cost of living. It's the problem of inadequate power supply. When you talk about the performance of the kwacha, it's not the West. Records are there. The records are there. The data is there. The kwacha has been one of the best performing currencies in the world. But we are not where we thought the kwacha would be. As we speak now, the kwacha is trading at something like 22, 21, 15 way. When it went all the way up to about 2028. So a lot is happening there. Inflation has been coming down, but we haven't yet achieved the single digit that we hope to bring it down to. That we haven't. In terms of the cost of living, my brother talked about the price of fuel, the price of meal when PF came into power. Exactly the same things happened when PF came into power, taking over after defeating the MMD. The same things. Almost everything went up. And there's a reason to explain why things go like this. But one thing that they would always ignore are the positive things that are happening. There is a lot that has been done to fix the mining sector. Mines that were closed are now open. Mines that were on the verge of packing their bags to leave are now investing billions of dollars in expanding their projects. We are targeting 3 million tons of copper by the year 2030. Already, the production of copper has gone up, and we are producing copper to volumes unprecedented. And we know that when you fix the economy, of course, you have to fix the mining sector to fix the economy in Zambia. When the economy is fixed, then things will begin to fall in place. Even the cost of living will begin to go down, because affordable cost of living is a product of a good economy. The policies that have been implemented in the agriculture sector has made Zambia to have close to 4 million tons, like never before, 4 million tons of maize just this season, because of the good policies of the UPND. Of course, coupled with the good rainy season that we had. Why did I hasten to mention the rain? It's because even if government delivers seed, fertilizer, and whatever on time, if we don't have rain, it's useless. So at the end of the day, we have to depend on God's providence for rain. The same applies to power generation. You can have many hydropower plants, but as long as you have drought, that period or that year, you are in trouble. That's why this government has been working round the clock. The president has not been sleeping to attract as much investment as possible in alternative energy
Thank you
generation
very much,
sector.
Mr. Frank Bwalya, Father Frank Bwalya, and Greyford Monde for joining us in this debate. We will continue this conversation another time, certainly in the run-up to the elections next year. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.